you and me find it. I got no plans, I ain't going nowhere. Take your fast car and keep on driving. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast, I felt like I was drunk. City lights stay out before us. Your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder, and I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone.
Welcome back to Step Anywhere 2020, the absolute joys of an online virtual event. If the internet goes, so do we, but we are here, we are back and ready for our first presentation of day 2 from Neil York Smith of Delft University, speaking to us live from the Netherlands. Neil, hello, how are you? Neil, hello, how are you? Great background as well, great to see you. we will get through to Neil today. That is for sure. Neil, hello, can you hear me? Okay, well, Neil is here. That's good to know. Our internet is running. We'll try and catch him. He's coming up next on Step Anywhere 2020. Step Anywhere 2020, third time lucky this time around. I'm sure a talk and presentation that all of you are very much looking forward to. Neil York-Smith speaking to us live from the Netherlands. Fingers crossed. Neil,
Hi.
Are you there? Hello, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, absolutely perfect. So great to have you here, Neil.
Awesome.
Step Anywhere 2020. I mean, it would have been great to be in person with you, but you know what? We make do with what we have. Our first online virtual event. Over to you, Neil.
Yeah, and thanks very much. It's really a pleasure to be here, joining you virtually. This is a first Step Anywhere, and it's a pleasure to be back at Step. I think the last time I was in person was a couple of years ago, and so it's great to be with you and with you together online. So today we're going to talk about AgTech, how technology is revolutionizing the agri-food sector. So my name is Neil York-Smith, and I'm at the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. I'm on the faculty here. And the case study we'll look at today is growing tomatoes using AI, artificial intelligence. Now, as was mentioned, I'm talking to you live from the Netherlands. Delft is a picturesque town, a college town in the Netherlands. And when you think the Netherlands, you're probably thinking windmills, right? You know, the Dutch Marketing Board sells the country, we have windmills. There we go, beautiful picture of windmills. And maybe you're thinking flowers, right? Tulips, Keukenhof, famous spring flowers in the Netherlands. And I know we're a smart audience at STEP, so you're not just thinking windmills and flowers, you're thinking windmills with flowers. So there we go, that's the Netherlands in the cliches. Now this is also a technology place, and so you're probably thinking, yeah, Neil, that's right, windmills, flowers, but don't they have bicycles in the Netherlands? And they do, and there's a lot of high tech here in the Netherlands. And this is maybe one of the few countries in the world where you can commute to work on your bicycle on safe bike paths separated from the traffic, and your commute has traffic jams of bicycles waiting at the bicycle traffic lights. Welcome to the Netherlands. So we have windmills, we have flowers, bicycles. Oh yeah, cheese. So when I cycled into the office this morning, yes, of course I cycled into the office, it was raining. So we get lots of rain, we have lots of grass, cows, cheese. And that brings us to our today's topic. It's about the Netherlands and some of the high-tech agriculture happening here. So let's do a little straw poll. So which countries in the world produce the most agriculture, grow the most things and sell them for export? Okay, so we need to be more precise. So we can we can do our ranking of countries, we can do it by volume. Which country produces the most agricultural exports? And you can probably guess that the Netherlands is not in the top 10. I mean, apart from all the bicycles and the windmills and the cheese, it's not a big country. The Netherlands is not in the top 10 in terms of volume. You can probably guess which countries lead, the big countries. So China, US, Brazil, so forth. But if we ask who produces the most agricultural exports in terms of dollar value, well, the Netherlands is in the top 10. Where is it? Well, this is an article from National Geographic. It's worth a read, a couple of years ago. And the Netherlands is number 2 in terms of dollar value of food exports, which is pretty good for a pretty small country. And you can see in the graphic here, the bar on the left is tomato production. So Netherlands is number 22 worldwide by volume. But in terms of yield, in terms of the efficiency of the tomatoes grown here, it's number 1. So the Netherlands specializes in high-tech agriculture, ag-tech, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I could have used this as the title slide for my talk, Automatos. So when I said we're going to grow tomatoes using AI, well, as I'll explain to you, this was part of a challenge. And so TU Delft, our university, joined with some of the high-tech companies here in the Netherlands to make Team Automatos. And this is our logo. It's a tomato, of course. And Delft, the city being a cute college town, is famous for its Delftware porcelain, its pottery, which is in blue and white, hence the logo, a tomato in Delft's blue colors. All right, are we ready? Okay, let's talk tomatoes. And this is what we're talking here. These are cherry tomatoes, so the small ones, the ones with the highest dollar value. Beautiful, juicy tomatoes. So when we talk about growing tomatoes, maybe you're thinking something like this. You know, a few tomatoes, maybe in a little patch, maybe on your windowsill. In Northern Europe, it was a super sunny and warm spring. And so everybody had tomatoes growing on their windowsills. This is tomatoes. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about greenhouse horticulture. So maybe you're thinking like this. Here we go, greenhouse. Look at these beautiful tomatoes. These are not cherries, but aren't they beautiful tomatoes? Looking great. Greenhouse, looking great. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about large-scale commercial farming. So glass houses like this, where they go on so far, you can't even see the other side. And if you can look carefully at the picture, you'll see those tomatoes, they don't grow in the soil. They go in special substrate. And they'll grow up, these bars you see in the picture, they'll grow up nice and tall. So this is what we're talking. This is why the Netherlands is number 1 in terms of efficiency of tomatoes and yield, because tomatoes are grown in these kind of glass houses at scale with high tech. Oh, and by the way, given it rains so much here in Northern Europe and it's cold, apart from global climate change, you need to grow them in glass houses. Okay, let's talk some more. So the challenge I mentioned was called the Autonomous Greenhouse International Challenge. This was the 2019-20 edition, so just this past year. And it was the second challenge. So the one the previous year, 2018-19, was about cucumbers, growing cucumbers. It turns out tomatoes are a little more tricky. The taste is harder to get right and they're harder to grow. And so the challenge was this, for using AI and sensors, grow the greenhouse of the future. Okay, so let's talk some more. Well, what did Team Automatos have to do? Well, we had to grow cherry tomatoes for 6 months. And we got to go inside the greenhouse once. We got to go inside on the day they put in the seedlings. I'll show you a video later. It was just so they could take some photos. The greenhouse grew without humans being inside it. All we could do was control the greenhouse climate by opening a window or closing a window remotely, or changing the amount of water, or some of the other parameters of the greenhouse. We could control the greenhouse and we could measure it using sensors. And using AI, we had to decide, well, how do you do this? So that over the 6 months, our yield of cherry tomatoes is sweet, right-timed, right-size, good-looking tomatoes that are going to yield the dollar value. So we might have a chance in winning the challenge. So the challenge was organized by Wageningen University in the Netherlands, together with Tencent and some other companies. Okay. So since it's about AI, we should talk about what is AI. Now, last time I was at the STEP conference, we talked about this. I talked about AI in society. And here's a picture from Japan. Is AI becoming commonplace? Well, what do you think about when we talk AI? What is artificial intelligence? Well, maybe you think it's data, maybe through cameras and sensors and used by big companies or by big government. Yeah, so what is AI? Well, maybe you think it's robots helping us in different ways in our lives. Or maybe, well, AI, it's everywhere these days, right? It's self-driving cars, or they hopefully soon self-driving cars. So what is AI? Well, let me talk a little more and we'll come back to that. Okay, so we have sensors, we have data. So this picture here is from the previous year. This is the cucumbers. So don't worry about what's the details of this picture, what's on the legends and so on. I just want you to look at the 6 pictures. There were 5 teams who are using AI for their cucumbers and 1 team of professional growers. Just looking at this, which team do you think won? Well, you know, they look a bit different. Some are a bit more splodgy, some are more spread out. Well, the team that won was this team down here in the corner. Why did they win? Because they controlled the sweet spot for the plant. They made sure the plant was happy, if you will, and growing, and therefore growing good cucumbers. The other teams, they all did well, but this team, they hit the sweet spot. And it turns out that's a kind of technical term in horticulture. So that was last year, as I said, and cucumbers are relatively easy versus tomatoes. So as Timor tomatoes, what are we going to do? Okay, well, here's our strategy. In some sense, our strategy was really simple. It's not about the AI. It's not about the technology. It's about the plant. The plant is at the center. The plant goes at the center. And then, okay, sure, we're going to use data. Yeah, like the graphs I just showed you. We're going to use sensors and controls, and we're going to use AI. Yes, we did it in Python. But our main strategy is put the plant at the center, get the plant in its sweet spot, keep it in balance over the 6 months, and we should get good tomatoes. That's the plan. Okay. So I couldn't tell you about using AI to grow tomatoes without having one slide and just a few words about the technical details. So this is my disclaimer. This is where we get a little bit technical, but it's okay. It's only one slide. I won't go super technical. I also want to give you a glimpse of how the AI worked under the bonnet. Okay. Ready? Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is our architecture diagram. And if you're familiar with classic AI, this is the 3-layer control architecture. So here's the greenhouse. That's the green thing, you know, with the plants in it and the sun. That's the greenhouse. That's what we want to control. And we do it in 3 levels. So at the top level is just the strategic level. This is mostly humans. This is where we say things like, how dense do we want to plant tomatoes at the start? We say things like, what's our strategy versus the winter versus the spring versus the summer? These kind of questions. This is high level questions, if you will. And here we draw upon expert grower knowledge. Yeah, we draw on what we know about growing tomatoes. And, you know, there's a lot of knowledge knowing. This is the high level. Now, the strategic level, it feeds into the next one. That's the tactical level. The tactical is this week. It's that kind of time horizon. It's not 3 months, it's not 6 months, it's this week, it's tomorrow, the day after, it's a few days. It's where we take the high level strategy and we say, okay, what do we do over the next few days? What do we do this week? Knowing the weather forecast for this week, okay, what do we do? And this is a mix of some human judgment and algorithms. And we try to allow the algorithms as much as we can, but also some human judgment. So the strategic feeds into the tactical, and the tactical level, that feeds into the operational. This is today. This is the next hour. This is what temperature do we request in the greenhouse? This is, do we open the windows or not? This is, do we irrigate now or in the evening? It's these kind of questions. Do we put more carbon dioxide in? What do we do? This is the operational level. And you can see we command the greenhouse, but then see the feedback loop. So we might say, open the windows, and then we measure the ventilation, and we say it's not enough. It should be enough, but it's not enough because, you know, that's how things are. That's the detail of it. And you also see the feedback loops going back to the tactical and strategic levels. So this is the 3-level architecture. And if you want to know about the, exactly what algorithms we use and so on, then ask me later. Was that okay? Not too technical? Okay, we're still with me. Okay, back to the pictures. So this is what the team looked like. This is Team Automatos. And as I said, it was a collaboration between the university and a number of high-tech companies with expertise in controlling greenhouses, building greenhouses, expertise in horticulture. And you can catch a glimpse down here in the corner of what our tomatoes were looking like at some point through. I have to say, it was a fun team to be part of, an interdisciplinary team, really drawing on people's different backgrounds and expertise. Okay, so I told you a little bit about the challenge and our strategy and mentioned the team. Let's look at the greenhouse. Okay. So this is what a greenhouse will look like. You can see a bunch of sensors, you can see the roofs, you can see at the bottom here the substrate where we're going to plant. And we got to choose which sensors to add. Besides the standard sensors in a greenhouse, for example, we added these light sensors. They tell us the light penetration in the crop in the different areas of the crop. And this is really useful as data to go into our AI algorithms. Okay. So we have sensors, including some cutting edge sensors. And here we go. This is a picture from one of our cameras. Here are the tomato plants. I've highlighted a few of the tomatoes. This is what it looked like. This is me, and this is all we could see. Right, because of course we couldn't go in person. Now, I know at the Step Anywhere, it's a sharp crowd. So you can see, if you look really carefully at the bottom, you can see that there seems a little bit of reflection on the floor. There shouldn't be reflection on the floor. That was because at one point, our greenhouse got flooded. And actually, we knew before the organizers of the competition. We knew because some of our sensors said, like, there's water here, and there shouldn't be. Great. Okay, so the sensors themselves were important. So let's do a little game. Are you ready for this? Let's have a look at some of the computer vision we did. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here's another webcam shot. How many tomatoes can you count? How many tomatoes do you see here? You're counting? Yeah, there's a few easy ones. Yeah, I actually highlighted those before. A few a bit harder to see. Let's see. Well, there's one. And I've colored it gray because it's kind of, not very ripe yet. And you might have looked just about there. You can see some more. They're slightly occluded by the leaves, but they're there and they're slightly more ripe. And there's some over there as well. Yeah, there's a bunch more. So using computer vision, we can spot the tomatoes and we can count how many there are of different types, how ripe are they, and we can know when to harvest. And in this graph here, you can see over time, and the number of unripe ones, the gray ones, go down. That's what you want. And the number of ripe ones will actually stay constant because we harvest them when they're ripe. So we use computer vision, where we could do things like this. Here's another one, a different screen cap. Now, look very carefully at the arrow. It's pointing to one of the leaves. Now, did you know between the day and the night that tomato plants move? Yeah, tomato plants move. Don't worry, they're not take over the world. And you get this kind of graph. You can see over time, the plants are moving up and down. And from how much movement they have, you can learn more things, which again is useful data for the model. Okay, nice. Okay, so I told you about the challenge. I told you a bit about our strategy, some of our sensors. Okay, that's not enough on its own. The AI is not going to do everything for us. It's still a research area. We don't have the technology, but just as importantly, we don't have the trust of the growers, and rightly so. Would you trust your livelihood to some new unproven algorithm? No, you wouldn't. But you do want to see what's going on. So we made some dashboards. This is our strategic dashboard. Here we track some different quantities. Things, for example, the plant load, how heavy the plant is with tomatoes, these kind of things, temperature. And you can see the blue lines is what we're aiming for, and the red lines is what we're getting. And we can track this over many weeks, over months. So it gives us a strategic insight. Is our strategy being successful? So strategic insight is important, but so also is tactical insight. The grower wants to know what's going on right now. And so this is our tactical dashboard. You can see right now the various measurements. We can drag and plot graphs over the today, yesterday, and you can choose between the webcams, and you can see things over time. Of course, we had night vision cameras there as well. So we have both the strategic and the tactical dashboards where you can see what the algorithm is doing, and if you need to, you can intervene in some way. So you can change some of the tactical numbers, for example. Right. Okay. Nice. And here's the result. So one last graph in a bit more detail. So the dark blue line you see, the dark blue line was our original strategy. Back in December when we started, we said, this is what we want. This is a temperature, I think, graph. Okay. And you can see this is what we wanted over time. Then you remember our 3 levels. So the tactical, the middle level is as we got closer to real time. Well, I mentioned the spring was really warm in Northern Europe. So we had to adjust our strategy because the weather was much sunnier than expected and warmer in the summer months, and in the spring months. And that red line again, that's what actually happened. That's the actual measured temperature in our greenhouse. That's the operational result. And you can see here we're aiming for the long-term balance. We want to have the plant in its sweet spot, so over time. And we were pretty happy. We're able to control the greenhouse roughly what we wanted. The red line kind of tracks the blue. This was good. This is a win for the AI in that at least we can control the greenhouse. And it also was a win for the tomatoes because this is what we got. Do you remember those graphs I showed you at the start? Well, here's our graph for tomatoes, of course. And you can see, yeah, we pretty much hit the sweet spot. We were pretty happy with this. The algorithms worked and they helped the plant to be in the place where it thrives. Okay, so here's a picture in all its glory. This is later on. You can see how big these plants get. So maybe it's a good thing they're not going to take over the world because they're pretty big. You can see our tomatoes there. And here's one of our harvests of our cherry tomatoes. They look good and they also tasted pretty good. Great, nice. So we'll be able to grow tomatoes using AI and relatively successfully. And our strategy again was you put the plant at the center. So the technology is important, the sensors are important, the AI is important, the systems engineering and all that kind of thing, it's all important, but the plant goes at the center. And using the data, using the control strategy, and then using our AI approach, okay, that's the way we're able to guide the plant, steer the greenhouse, and for a good yield. Okay, so now you're asking, Neil, this was great. I've learned about tomatoes, I've learned about AI, how you grow it, it's great. How did you do in that competition? Because there were 5 teams, so there's 4 other teams, and there were the professional tomato growers. I mean, how did you guys do? How did it go? Well, we've got a video lined up for you. So the tech guys will show us the video now, and let's see how we did.
We were so excited to see that artificial intelligence can actually outperform a human control group in our last autonomous greenhouse competition. And we're really excited to see what the teams can show us the potential AI is in this upcoming competition.
So in the challenge, the different teams will have to show what their artificial intelligence is capable of to grow a good crop. And the nice thing of this challenge is that we see that the 5 teams are doing it all in a bit different way.
The reason that we want to join this competition is to test our AI strategy and try to use our AI strategy in a real case and to see what will happen.
Last year we had a very nice experience, and we think we still have a lot of things to improve this year. That's why we enhance our AI team and try to win this game again.
We're trying to incorporate all the new available technologies in conventional equipment to have a consistent control, but also being able to add new technology all the time. So that's the approach.
I think we have a deep knowledge in two different domains. On the one hand, the greenhouse or the horticulture domain from Delphi, and on the other hand, the data infrastructure, data engineering part, which is very important.
We are enjoying this work a lot. We are willingly participating in this work simply because we are enjoying this work so much. That gives a lot of strength to Team Digilog, I believe.
Nou, waarom ik meedoet? Omdat ik van uitdagingen houd. En ik denk dat door de middel van innovatie wij verder mee kunnen komen.
Het doel is eigenlijk heel makkelijk. Niet verliezen, dat is punt 1. En punt 2 is de hoogst mogelijke kwaliteit, goede smaak en een goede balans in het land. Dat is belangrijk.
So these clusters take about 45 to 50 days from fruit set until harvest. From all these 5 plants here and 5 plants on the other side, the fruit growth period is registered while harvesting these clusters.
Afdeling 301. Daar zitten ze al vanaf week 5 op 5,4 planten per vierkante meter. 302 had een hele snelle start. En daarna vlakte het. Afleken wel, er gebeurde niks meer. 303, te snel gestart. Nu gaat het hartstikke goed en er zit er een keiharde ijsprint in. 304, je kan zien dat er niet met heel veel power geteeld is, maar echt mooie tomaten. 305, ook hele mooie tomaten. Aan het eind hebben ze toch nog weer een ijsprintje met een extra stengel. Ik ben benieuwd. 306, voor mij de beste kast die erbij zit. Echt mooie tomaten, veel tomaten, extra stengel.
Neil, thank you so much for that great video. Back to you for your presentation.
Awesome, thank you. So, we won. And here's us celebrating. You'll notice that we're celebrating with 1.5 meters between everybody on the team, because in the Netherlands, it's 1.5 meter social distancing. You'll also notice that we're having some cherry tomatoes to eat. So it was really nice to win. And I think all the teams did well. And interestingly, I think almost all the teams outperformed the professional growers. And that says that there's potential in this technology to indeed revolutionize agriculture. Now, I have a caveat. So last time I spoke at the STEP conference, I talked about AI in society, as I mentioned. And so when we think AI and we've just seen, hey, you know, we beat the professional growers, is this the DeepMind Go, AlphaGo moment for horticulture? Are we saying, you know, away with the humans and growing their stuff, we make it high tech, we put in the AI and, you know, that's it, game over? Well, I don't think so. I mentioned earlier having the dashboards, some kind of communication, helping the grower to see what's going on. So it's a kind of partnership. The grower can see, can trust the algorithms, but if there's some mistake, you know, the AI does it wrong and is about to, you know, cook all your tomatoes and toast them, okay, then the human can intervene. And also, the AI has this nice partnership. So the computer can do the kind of, you know, day-to-day decisions. You know, do I need to open the window a little bit more? It's just not an exciting decision for a human to make. But the bigger, the tactical and the strategic decisions, well, this is where the human knowledge comes in, and this is where the judgment comes in. You know, what do we want to do? What kind of tomatoes do we want to grow? It's here that the humans take the lead. So I don't see it as a competition, between the humans and the AI in growing tomatoes, so much as we're developing the algorithms enough that we actually might be useful to assist the growers. So that's my take-home message. So yes, AgTech is validated in some sense in partnership with people. So I hope you've enjoyed this talk. I told you about Team Automatos. If you want to get in touch later on, please feel free and Google me, hit me up on LinkedIn. And it's been a pleasure speaking at STEP Anywhere.
Thank you so much for that fantastic presentation. The most I've probably ever learnt about tomatoes and artificial intelligence in my 29 years. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. All the best there in Netherlands. And I'm sure we'll have you back with STEP Anywhere in no time. Right. Listen, you can stay involved with our speakers, our panelists, whoever you like, wherever you are. Okay, make sure you head on over to the Hopin chat box where you can get involved, leave comments, leave questions, and I'm sure the speakers will get back to you throughout the day. Right, do not go anywhere. We've got our first panel coming your way next, headed by Timothy Bent, CGO at Tomatum. More on that coming up next.